Not my strong point, public speaking, but here I am again. Because this is really important. We have a problem within the UK, not just the UK, this is worldwide, and it needs addressing, it needs awareness bringing to it. Sorry, nervous. I'm not here today as someone who has just read about this in a book or watched a documentary. I'm here because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've watched the signs appear in children, even from when they were babies. I've seen what happens when those signs were ignored, when no one steps in and when a child grows up carrying that pain, sometimes becoming abusive themselves. Children don't always speak out. Sometimes they can't, and too often the systems designed to protect them fail to listen. That's why we are here, because their silence should never mean their suffering goes unseen. Children don't always have the words to explain what is happening to them, but they often show us in other ways. Every behaviour is communication. Sometimes it's in their drawings, sometimes it's in suddenly wetting or soiling themselves. Sometimes it comes outwards through outbursts of anger or aggression. Other times it turns inwards through withdrawal, silence, or even self-harm. These are all signs trying to tell us something. The tragedy is that too often these signs are dismissed, punished, or misunderstood, instead of being recognised as the cries for help that they are. Let's start by looking at the roots of power. The families and bloodlines that have shaped history behind closed doors. One name that often comes up is Vlad the Impaler, also known as Vlad Dracula. He ruled with fear and brutality, and he's been linked through ancestral lines to modern-day royalty, including King Charles, who himself has publicly acknowledged his connection to Vlad. These aren't just dusty names from the past. Powerful bloodlines still exist today, and many of them are deeply intertwined through strategic marriage, secrecy, and wealth. Some families have stayed hidden in plain sight, operating behind the systems we are told are democratic, and fair. Names like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers often surface in conversations about global influence. These families hold unimaginable power, not just in money, but in media, energy, pharmaceuticals, agriculture, and education. They're among the top 1% shaping the rules that govern the rest of us. Companies like BlackRock, which has influence over trillions in global assets, are tied to this elite circle. And while Freemasons and secret societies are often the focus, it's these elite families who sit at the top of the pyramid. And don't be fooled, these groups aren't just made up of kings and CEOs. Many high-level Freemasons, particularly those of the 33rd degree and above, include local officials, business owners, school governors, charity directors. It's not just them up there, it's people all around us. Survivor stories have linked some of these elite and Masonic groups to serious and organised abuse. This is very real, and brave voices are coming forward to expose it despite the risks. And it's important to say, this kind of abuse is often generational. Cycles of harm are passed down through families and bloodlines, where abuse is normalised instead of stopped. Breaking those cycles is possible, but only when truth is brought into the light. We often hear about secret societies, the Freemasons, the Illuminati, Skull and Bones. But it's not just about rituals in dark rooms, it's about control, conditioning and covert communication. Symbolism is everywhere, in films, music videos, architecture, even children's media. The one eye, the checkerboard floors, the butterflies, the mirrors, they're not random. Once you learn what they mean, you start to see them everywhere. Some survivors have also spoken about the use of frequencies in content, deliberately designed sounds and patterns embedded into material, including pornography, to influence the brain's response. These can heighten arousal, numb emotion, or even trigger trauma recall. This may sound unbelievable to some, but when you listen to survivors across different countries and decades describe the same methods, it becomes clear that this is not imagination, it's calculated. We need to talk honestly about pornography, not in a judgmental way, but in a protective way. Because what porn has become today is not what many people think it is. It's not just a private act between consenting adults, it's a multi-billion-pound industry driven by violence, domination, humiliation, and in many cases, exploitation. Many survivors have said their abuse was filmed and circulated as pornography. Some say they were made to smile for the camera to make it appear consensual, so when people watch porn they might be unknowingly viewing real abuse. That's not said to shame people, it's said to wake us up. It's not just about the performers, it's about the viewers too, especially children. There's growing evidence that frequent porn rewires the brain, altering dopamine systems, emotional regulation, and even empathy. Some researchers believe it can lead to emotional numbing, violent sexual behaviour, and even contribute to the development of paedophilic urges in people who were previously not that way inclined. And it starts young. Children as young as 7 or 8 are now being exposed to graphic sexual material, often accidentally, but increasingly through social media platforms, peer pressure, and even school content. Because while we think we're protecting our children, this content is already reaching them, normalising violence, choking, and domination is just part of sex. This isn't education, it's indoctrination, and we're seeing the fallout in real time. In the UK, authorities identified 19,125 potential victims of modern slavery by 2024. Around 31% of them, which is nearly 6,000, were children. And we know the true number is far higher because so many cases are never reported. Some trafficked children still sleep in their beds at night, with their families completely unaware of what's happening. Others are trafficked by their own family members, the very people meant to protect them. Ritual abuse is defined by Rape Crisis South London as abuse that is often extreme and sadistic in nature, involving repeated physical, sexual and psychological harm, alongside rituals, symbols and ceremonies designed to instill fear, secrecy and control. Survivors describe being tortured to such extremes that it facilitates mind control. As Hertz Rape Crisis adds, ritual abuse is a very real issue in the UK, even though some people may not believe it. While some people still call it conspiracy, the reality is that this is structured abuse, often carried out by organised groups, sometimes families, sometimes networks, sometimes those in power. Survivors report being hurt in ways designed to fracture the mind, to force them into disassociation, obedience and amnesia. Some describe being drugged, restrained, forced to witness others being harmed, or pushed to take on new identities through mind control techniques that begin in early childhood. Even the police now formally recognise ritual abuse as real. Cathy O'Brien is a well-known survivor of MK Ultra and government mind control programs in the United States. She has testified under oath that she was abused as part of a network involving CIA handlers, politicians and elite figures. Her programming involved trauma-based mind control, ritual abuse and exploitation by high-level officials. She was passed between abusers under what she described as Project Monarch, a subset of MK Ultra. And she believes this programming was designed to fracture the mind and create obedient, disassociative alters. Annette Lucas, a British survivor of intergenerational ritual abuse, has spoken out about Freemasonic involvement in her abuse. She describes ceremonies, symbols and calculated psychological manipulation carried out by people in positions of influence and protected by silence. Jeanette Archer, another UK survivor, has been incredibly brave in speaking publicly about her experience of satanic ritual abuse within religious and government-linked circles. She has stated that as a child she was taken to ceremonies that included politicians and church officials. She highlights how survivors are often further abused by a system that refuses to believe them. And then there's Jimmy Savile, one of the UK's most infamous predators. He wasn't just a TV presenter. He had unrestricted access to hospitals, care homes, children's homes, and even the royal family. Reports have confirmed his close relationship with Prince Charles and his role as an advisor to powerful institutions. He was even given keys to Broadmoor Hospital and honoured with a knighthood despite years of rumours and complaints. How did he get away with it? Who protected him? We now know that MI5 and MI6 were made aware of allegations and did nothing. Some believe his abuse was not only tolerated but enabled because of what he knew and what he was involved in. Despite the horror of these crimes, justice is often blocked before it begins. Every child sexual abuse allegation faces enormous barriers, and heartbreaking data shows only a small fraction ever see prosecution. One leading charity notes that fewer than 5% of child sexual abuse cases in the UK result in legal consequences, meaning over 95%. One leading charity notes that fewer than 5% of child sexual abuse cases in the UK result in legal consequences, meaning over 95% of perpetrators walk free. Nearly half of all cases collapse because of evidential difficulties. Raphael Viola, survivor testimony and Vatican Freemason links, author of Stealing Lives, endured horrific abuse in Catholic care homes and schools such as Croom Court. He later revealed that many of these institutions were left out of the ICSA inquiry. He discovered that files related to his abuse have been sealed until 2044. When he sought accountability, he was told by members of the Christian Brothers that they bore no responsibility since they were technically employers of the Home Office. Instead, he was told to contact the Home Office for compensation, a shocking deflection of responsibility. In the afterword of his book, he describes how he was chosen for abuse because of his unique skill set, multilingual and multicultural background, by what he calls a well-oiled machinery of child abuse, child trafficking, enforced adoption, secret human experimentation and torture, and facilitated by insider and outsider networks of the Vatican. Raphael also highlights the hidden connection between religious organisations, the Vatican and Freemasonry, showing how survivors' testimonies continue to expose the power structures that protect perpetrators while silencing victims. Some of the most disturbing child abuse cases in the UK have involved trusted professionals, people in positions of power who use their authority to commit prolonged and calculated abuse against children. Vanessa George, a nursery worker in Plymouth, was convicted in 2009 after admitting to sexually assaulting children in her care and producing over 100 indecent images of them. David Garrick, a Metropolitan Police officer, was convicted in 2023 of dozens of rapes and sexual assaults spanning 2 decades. Jimmy Savile, one of Britain's most famous television personalities, is now believed to have sexually abused hundreds of children and vulnerable people across hospitals, care homes and BBC studios over several decades, protected by status and connections. Rolf Harris, another household name, was convicted in 2014 of multiple counts of indecent assault against young girls. It's not only individuals who betray children, sometimes it's the very systems that are supposed to protect them. In the family courts, we are seeing cases where children have been handed to the abusive parent, while the safe parent is disbelieved, silenced, or even punished for speaking out. And when the children are taken into the care system, too often they are not made safer, but placed at even greater risk. For many survivors, it feels less like safeguarding and more like state-enabled trafficking. One of the most shocking cases in the UK involved a Nigerian politician, his wife, and a doctor, who in 2023 were convicted under the Modern Slavery Act, the first ever conviction of its kind. They were found guilty of bringing a young man to the UK in an attempt to harvest his kidney for their daughter. This isn't about shame. There's enough of that already. It's about truth, because what is unspoken often recreates itself, in silence, in secrecy, and in shame. And I know with every fibre of my being that many perpetrators were once victims. The pain that was done to them became the pain they inflicted on others. That doesn't excuse the pain they've caused, but it helps us to understand how the cycle keeps repeating. We cannot only help the children who stayed victims and turn away from the children who became perpetrators. Both sides carry wounds. Both sides need healing. If we want the cycle to break, we have to reach back to those souls still lost in the dark and bring them into the light too. I've been to dark places. I felt darkness around me. And I know many people carry deep pain. I know that pain sometimes turns into rage, into a cry for revenge, or even death for those who harmed them. I've felt that too. But darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only love can do that. Compassion and empathy. Compassion and empathy are the only things strong enough to stop the cycle from repeating. However, this isn't about vengeance, it's about awareness, courage and compassion. Because we cannot change what we're too afraid to look at, and we cannot protect children if we don't first believe them. I speak out not just for the ones who made it through, but for the ones who didn't. For the children who were failed, forgotten, for the ones who never made it out of their childhood. So I'm asking you not to be perfect, not to have all the answers, but to be willing, to be brave, to speak the truth even when our voices tremble, to be a voice for those who cannot speak, for the child too afraid, for the ones who were never heard, for the ones who never got the chance to grow up. We heal by shining light into the places no one wants to see, and together we can break the cycle and create a world where every child is safe, seen and loved. Thank you for listening.